needs to get up early. Yeah. Okay. All right. We are back from executive session, and I'll turn it over to School Board Secretary Dr. Sandra to report out on votes taken.
This will be real quick. There were 2 votes taken. There was a vote taken to seal the minutes, a vote taken to come out of executive session.
Thank you, Dr. Santana. Next on the agenda is school board committee updates, and I've been asked by Vice President Garcia to forego school board committee updates for this month. We can reconvene with updates at our next board meeting. So next next would be the consent agenda. Is there an approval of items 11 through 14? Motion been made by Mr. Escobar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hingable. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. Motion carries. Next, we have action items, and I'm going to take these all in one vote. And these are action items number 15 through 27. Is there a motion to approve action items 15 through 27 in one vote?
Motion.
Motion's been made by Mr. Nunez. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hingable. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That brings us to our presentation, for our back to school presentation. And my understanding is that we're just going to have a high level overview of the presentation. Is that sufficient for Mr. Scott and Ms. Stewart? If you need a microphone, I believe Mr. Kushner could. Dr. EBM is giving me a lesson here on managing the agenda, and I just have to listen. The man's a professional. Yeah.
So has the attendance presentation.
It's good to have you back.
Slides. All right, good evening, everyone. Zach Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Operations, and I'll run us through back to school update. And there's a lot of material in here, so I won't go through it all. But we wanted to highlight, like we do with all of our work, it's focused on our turnaround action plan and aligned to the 3 pillars in our tab. So I'll walk through in order what we saw some of the bright spots from the start of school, but I'll leave it with the board to review and see if they have any questions, but also going to take questions at the end as well. So if we start with efficient district systems, a few things that I'd like to highlight is kind of the normal course of business, which is doing a lot of the deep cleaning and maintenance at our schools over the summer. This summer was a short summer with a late end of the school year and an early start, but we were able to pull our facilities ready for day one. What was different this year were both some major constructions that are now underway, more work going on in the district that's been done in recent history. So the groundbreaking of the Narducci Learning Center, Hospital High School, and also recently at the Debate Elementary School, which will reopen, fully renovated the following school year. We also had a number of smaller projects through the Revolving Fund, working on a number of needs identified by the board, as well as others. We're excited to have installed water flowing stations. You may have been able to use one at PCTA, right outside of this auditorium. Gym floors at a number of buildings, and much of that is still underway. But we're excited about doing these major renovations that you hear about, but also dealing with some of the necessary but smaller projects like boilers, gym floors, and filling stations. So you'll be able to see, I think we have some pictures of what those projects were. Both the water fountains and some masonry work, which both has a health and safety component, but also makes our schools look a lot more presentable. Aside from facilities, we continued our kind of strong focus on health and safety. So we continue with a number of our health and safety protocols. For the first 4 weeks of school, we've done asymptomatic testing, along with providing schools with masks, sanitizer, and PPE. On technology and other operations, we procured nearly 6,000 Chromebooks to keep our device ratio better than 1-to-1. And also supported our schools with the launch of Principal Resource Hub. So we've heard frequently from our principals that information scattered in a number of places. They don't always know who to go to. So this was a site built by principals and for principals about where to get key documents and resources, kind of key deadlines for principals that they need to know, as well as key points of contact.
Good evening, everyone. Yvonne Alvarez, Chief Academic Officer. Just some highlights about our back to school and excellence in learning metrics and just some updates. So we have a couple of things we just want to share. Young Woods Elementary earned PPSD's first ever 5-star pre-K rating, so something to celebrate. And obviously also scale out to the other programs that we have and replicate the same concept. So we're very, very proud of that program. We also had some incredible professional development. Colleen Van Brunt led before the opening of school for all of our teachers, targeting all of our core materials, making sure that all teachers were required to attend those 5 days and provide support. We had 98% of our teachers that attended the Teacher Academy sessions in August, and that gave us some great response and feedback in terms of, that they gain new strategies and tools to implement in their classroom. So really working off that feedback, what they need for the remainder of the year, working with the coaches and the instructional supervisors. We also already began, early in September, we started with the instructional support leaders and specialists, all of the sessions for the K-12 coaching to make sure that schools are on target for their school improvement plan goals, their comprehensive school improvement plan goals, as well as designing the coaching cycles that align with their instructional focus that they've identified. The teaching and learning, and I think this is one of the things that we not only needed, but really moving in the direction of having like 21st century learning even for our teachers. We have a central resource hub that has all of our teaching and learning materials by area, including professional development, where you can access lesson plans, units, all of the digital resources for each of our courses by grade, and it's all broken down. And I think teachers not only worked through the summer to create lesson plans that are on there, but really appreciate the fact that everything is in one place and it's accessible in a digital manner. And then lastly, for opening of school, that whole first week, all central office administrators supported opening of school and dismissal for an assigned school so that all of those, posts would be covered and smooth, and we dealt with issues, whether if it was a tardy bus, and everything was, by the end of the week, things were running extremely smoothly. So we had a great opening of schools. And we're really looking forward to continuing the level of work that we started with. We started off with a lot of impulse and excitement. So I'll turn it over to Sandy to discuss our next slide.
Good evening, everyone. Sandra Stewart, Chief Student Support Service Officer. I'm going to be reporting today on two of our offices. The first is our Office of Multilingual Learners. We've also been very, very busy, but they told me I can only do 3 bullet points. So I'm going to give you a high level of what we've been working on. So this year we're really excited. We're giving the last links assessment for the first time in our district, and we're really excited about that for all of our MLL students, K through 12. This is a research-based assessment that is essential in helping us monitor the language development of our students. It is a exact, very similar replica of what we give in January, which is our access test. So this information will be really important. We're coming to an end of closing out the testing, and that information will be really important as we move forward in our ELD, which is the next bullet that I want to share with you. So this year we have an ELD block in everyone's schedules, which is our English language development. And for the first time, we've also purchased a curriculum for elementary schools. It's Vista Higher Ed, and it's the Connect program. And then in the middle and high school, we continued with Cengage and just refreshed and purchased some additional materials for them. And then lastly, we also participated with the teaching and learning team and worked in partnership with them. And we offered multiple professional development sessions for the new teacher academy, the coach academy, the principal academy, and then also our regular teacher academy. And just to kind of highlight a few of those sessions, we did a very popular session on refugee and newcomers. We also did some of the sheltered content instruction sessions, which is part of our DOJ agreement. We also did a lot around our ELD resources and also around our dual language program as we want to continue to grow and strengthen that program. Next, the Office of Specialized Instruction and Exceptional Students. I am very happy to announce that we have hired some very specific program managers. And what that means is that our schools are getting extensive support in the different programs. So for example, we have supports for our autism and ECS classrooms. We have support for our resource, inclusion and co-teach classrooms. So we have, really increased our related services. So we're really ensuring that those managers are boots on the ground, supporting our teachers and ultimately our students and families. We also just implemented a brand new guidebook, which outlines all of the policies, procedures, forms, etc. For specialized in education. And then lastly, we also participated in professional development, and we did some of our topics were the non-violent crisis prevention. We did 504 training. We did IEP training, supporting students with IEPs, very program specific, autism support, and we also supported all of the professional development. We have many good things in addition to that coming, but that has been most of our focus for the beginning of the school year. And I think I'm turning it back over to Zach.
So talk through a little bit around engaged communities and communications. We're excited to expand in our parent ambassador program. As a new kindergarten parent myself, that parent ambassador was one of the first people I met at my kiddos back to school event. So I can speak firsthand about how important having a friendly face and a parent to connect with is important. We also did a lot last year, obviously, around school safety. And one of the things that came through a lot actually was how we codify and systematize our communications that happen around crises or drills and things like that. So Nick Gomez, who's not here, did a lot of work to make sure we had clear templates, clear protocols for schools and what to do in case where they're having a lockdown drill or an actual lockdown. And I think we've been able to implement those this year. And we've seen hopefully that
You need this one here?
and we've been able to implement this year and see the benefits of this in practice. Closing out with world-class talent. A number of exciting things to talk about. This year we increased external hiring by over 50% last year and nearly double what it was several years ago. That was through a number of different strategies, but largely posting far earlier than we have in the past, doing a lot more extensive marketing and recruitment, and leveraging our own employees for both referral and screening. We've also partnered with Local 1033. We had an event here at PCTA not too long ago. The superintendent spoke, but it was a way to encourage our student graduates at PPSD to come back and work in our schools, either as teacher assistants and teachers. And so we were excited to build that pipeline early in partnership with our labor colleagues. I'll also just mention before I close, then open it up for questions. We recently launched a superintendent's teacher cabinet. We met with the group last week. It's 10 teachers who were nominated by their peers across the district, representing all age groups, student age groups, experience within the district, subject level. So we have a nice kind of cross section of the district, and all came with the kind of a clear, consistent purpose of wanting to elevate teacher voice and be part of the change in the district. So we're excited. Lots of energy in the first meeting, so we're excited to see where it goes for the rest of the year. So understanding that was high level, more than happy to take any questions on what was on the slides or anything I spoke specifically about.
Zach, I just have one question. You mentioned at the start of school that there were COVID testing done. How did that turn on? With the COVID testing, did we see high transmission rates at certain schools? Did we have to implement mask wearing or any other COVID restrictions as a result of just some of the test results?
Yeah, so our health and safety protocols had us doing testing for the first 4 weeks of school, after any school breaks, and then if the district were to ever enter into high transmission. What we saw were, I think the percentage was 0.75% positivity rate. So of all the tests, less than 1% were coming back positive, which is good. There were cases at schools where we saw clusters, which might be 3 or more in a specific class or a certain percentage. And in those cases, people were strongly encouraged to wear masks while in school. But we didn't see any kind of school-wide outbreaks. But in those cases where we saw, per RIDO guidance, a cluster in a classroom, we work with those teachers and students in the class to strongly recommend masks.
Okay, for those small instances where there was transmission, did that trigger the district to change any protocols with regards to deep cleanings? Did deep cleanings increase at any of those schools, or did we just maintain the same status quo schedule?
We kept the same cleaning schedule, and part of that is because what we've learned more about the virus is it's very little about surface transmission, a lot more about airborne transmission. So all of our classrooms still have HEPA purifiers; those have not changed. Those will continue to be in place. So that'll help with air quality. It is masks, that we recommend when we do see an outbreak, or not an outbreak, but a cluster. But we still do deep cleanings for cases that happen in the building less than 24 hours, but it's kind of borne out that the surface level transmission is not a real vector for COVID-19.
Okay. And my final question, and I'll to others if they have questions with regards to the world-class talent, given what the district has done recently with hiring folks, 77, 80 folks. Of the 80, do you have an idea of how many of those folks were classroom teachers, how many of the folks were support staff? Where did that break down?
I can get the specific numbers. I do know the majority were substitute teachers, with the next largest group being TAs, clerks, bus monitors. So it was not as many kind of fully certified classroom teachers, but largely substitutes, which we found become a strong pipeline for future teaching roles.
Yeah, and is that going to be the approach that the district takes as we move forward with these type of events where we're targeting substitute teachers?
I mean, throughout the summer, most of our hiring events to this point have been just for fully certified teachers. So this was our first, not our first, but the biggest one we've had that had non kind of support, that the focus was support staff. So I think we'll try to do both. Frankly, it is harder to hire fully certified teachers during the school year. So I think, our focus certainly has always been fully having certified teachers and hiring certified teachers. But after the start of the school year, we wanted to have events for clerks and TAs because we know when you talk to our school leaders, that's a need for them as well.
Yeah, and I know my last one is, and I can imagine you don't have this off the top of your head, but I'd be curious to know of those substitute teachers, what subjects were did they apply for? Was it more for math? Was it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I can share. I don't have the.
I
have the breakdown by level. I don't know if we have it by subject, but we know how many did elementary, middle, high that I can share.
Do you have a demographic breakdown as well?
I can get that. I don't have that right now, but I can get it.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Is there any additional questions? Sandra?
I have a few, three, completely unconnected to one another. So one question I had, and I think this is probably aimed at Sandy. You had mentioned the nonviolence crisis prevention.
Yep, the CPI.
And I think we may have actually talked about this in a policy committee meeting, but I just wanted to ask it in a public setting as well. Is there any sort of kind of closing the loop follow up in terms of nonviolent crisis prevention at the school level so that training continues along the way? Because a sort of plug and play thing in August for something as complex as that, as culture changing as that is, it feels like it needs more consistent follow-up.
So there's two parts to that. So the CPI training is a very specific training that we provide to administrators and then also to classroom teachers that are in some of our special ed settings that would possibly have to. I mean, the whole premise of the training is not to ever enter and go into a restraint, obviously, but to hire, right? So we targeted those specific, and then any personnel like TAs that were working in those classrooms. And then now the next step where we're doing now would be every school is required to have a crisis team. So we also now are in the middle of training the crisis team. So that's that piece. We're also having our restorative trainings, which is, I think, the piece that you're referring to. And the restorative training is now being conducted with middle and high school. Right now, we're starting there first. And we have already done the culture coordinators, culture specialists, our administrators at the middle and high school level, and now we're going to be moving into our support staff. So our psychologists, our social workers, and our school counselors are our next group. So as we're trying to build out the teams.
So do we have, just a follow-up question for that, do we have tools or for data gathering to sort of get a sense of whether
Absolutely.
it works or not?
Absolutely. So we do, we actually, I think that in our next policy, we'll be looking at our physical restraint policy meeting. So that will be in there. And then, yes, we do, if anyone does a particular restraint, we do have them, we do collect that data and have them put that in to one of our systems to collect it. So you'll see that when we review the policy with you at the next meeting. Yeah.
Another question I had actually is probably for Zach, and I'm hoping I'm remembering this correctly. I think we got a sizable grant to create financial incentives for teachers of color to come and stay. I think it was a Rhode Island Foundation grant, right? And I know this isn't necessarily a back to school question, but it sort of is. Do we have any information yet on the extent to which we've been able to retain the folks that we've hired? So sort of where are we in the process of that?
Yeah, so I'll get data on the first cohort was of 25. We have another cohort of 25 this year. I will get specifics on the cohort of 25 that were with us last year. I do know we looked at retention data year over year, and we did see that our retention of teachers of color was higher than kind of the faculty average, which is a good thing. Often, in part because our teachers of color tend to be early career teachers who have higher attrition rates in general, so that was a positive sign to see. So I will get, I know we'll have a second full cohort of 25, so I'll see how many from the first cohort have stayed on, but I do think most of them have, given the incentives.
Thank you. And then, I don't want to monopolize, I have one more question. Can I ask?
No, feel free.
Okay. And then I want to go eat dinner too. So, my question actually just has to do with this pre-K, and I'm not sure whether I direct that. Are there any hats you don't wear, Sandy?
I'm not sure.
So the Youngwood success sounds like that's terrific. And
Bright star.
yeah, and so I guess my question is about sort of how many pre-K classrooms we have. Like what would it? Where are we in terms of full capacity? In terms of being able to actually.
So we're at full capacity.
Well, I know
So
the
we are.
classrooms are full. That's not what I mean. I mean full capacity in terms of the actual population that could fill pre-K classrooms.
So we have our pre-K classrooms sprinkled around the district. I can get you the exact number of, how many we have at each classroom, each school. We're still expanding. We're looking to possibly expand, I think, 7 more this year. We are seeing a spike in the amount of students and families who want to have pre-K. So we definitely are expanding. And we will be opening up 7 more classrooms. And one of the things that it's another hard to fill area, finding a preschool teacher that is certified in both preschool and also have the special ed certification. So we are looking at expanding, absolutely, because we do need to offer some more spots to families. But one of the things we did change this year is that in the previous year, we were doing half day, and we did change this year to full day based on a lot of our families' need and what they asked us for. So next time I can definitely share those numbers with you so you know how many we have.
Yeah, because our new mayor has made that, or appears to be making that a priority. So I'm just, at some point, it would be actually great for the board or even just the policy committee to get a kind of briefing about the numbers.
The process,
that we have.
sure.
What all that is.
Sure.
Do the students who go into a pre-K school like at Youngwoods then go to kindergarten at Youngwoods, or is it a separate? Because at some point I know they were separate, but I don't.
Yeah, it would depend. And so we have a couple of different preschools. We have our Rhode Island-based preschool, and then we have our preschool that's here, in the actual districts. We have both, but that's the hope is wherever the students are, that they would funnel into the school setting. But unfortunately, at some of the sites we're opening up now, they might be the only, one preschool classroom there for right now, until we start looking at, how much more we're going to expand as, the years come. So. It's a long-term plan that we're in the middle of planning right now.
Yeah, because I'm familiar enough with the research to know that this is a significant way to move the needle on student achievement.
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
high-quality universal pre-K. There's almost nothing else that moves the needle like that does. So, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I did have those numbers quickly from the hiring event, just so we had 10 elementary substitutes, 23 middle school substitutes, and 12 high school substitutes, which is great. Middle school is one of our areas of need, so it was exciting to have those.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Are there any additional questions from board members?
A totally unrelated question. The water system, how are they doing now? The water filtration systems, is everything working well?
They're working well. We haven't had any breakages or complaints so far. And we are in the process of ordering bottles, like aluminum bottles, district-wide for all students, so that they'll have those in their schools. Because we know some may not have their own water bottles to use at those fountains. So that'll be a nice thing that should be coming in the next month.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from board members? We are good to go.
Oh.
Is there anything else, please?
No, we thought we were doing attendance too, but we can do.
No, we can.
Oh, we're doing that now.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we had wrapped up this portion of the presentation. Please.
I need you to put up the.
Mark. While Mr. Scott's putting it up, we'll go really quickly. But we're going to be presenting on our attendance intervention and strategy. So I just want to introduce Mark Catone, who's our Director of Student Support Services and Alternative Programs, and also Mr. Stephen Grace, who was here earlier, who's been really leading, the two of them have been leading the work for the district. He had to leave, so I apologize, he couldn't stay. So I'll be sharing with Mr. Catone, but we are really excited to share the initiatives that we have started as a district this year to get our students in school, because we all know how important it is that, you know, we need to get them here. If they're going to learn, they need to be present in school every day on time and be there all day. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Catone, and
Thank you.
We will give you high leverage.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go high leverage through what our attendance strategy is for this particular school year. And it's really not even a strategy, it's really a campaign, okay? And that started over the summer. Our intent this year is to, and our strategy is to intervene early in a restorative manner, okay? So before a student is even absent, we want to be able to create a culture in every school where students want to be in school every day and are supported every day, socially, emotionally, with trauma, and also around, obviously, attendance and being in school, and what types of supports we can put in place in order to do that. So with that said, this summer, we started a campaign to go out into the community and let families and students know that PTSD cares, and we want you in school day one. And what we did was, we did summer outreach, and we did that in a few different ways. First, we went out into the community and did home visits. We visited community centers, we visited parks, we knocked on doors of businesses, whoever we could see and talk about the great things that are happening at PTSD, and whatever we can do to support you to make sure you're ready for school day one, we did. And one of the things we did when we went out into the community was we created these brochures, these door knockers, and on the door knockers was a QR code, and you could scan it, and what it would do is it would take you to our school department website, and it would give you all sorts of back to school information as a family that you may need in order to be prepared for school. Dr. Martinez has one, and we also sent those out to schools where schools could put their own QR code on there, because we also had schools going out over the summer, knocking on doors and doing home visits, so the families could also scan the QR code, say the Mount Pleasant High School, and it would give them information on back to school at a particular school. So those are some of the things we did this summer. We also put some financial backing into this campaign as well. And on our redesigned schools, we created restorative attendance centers. And what they did was, one of our PAC goals is Freshmen on Track, and they focused on our incoming freshmen who were chronically absent as 8th graders. And they made phone calls, they did outreach, they did home visits, and they wanted to make sure that those students were ready to be in school day one, what they would need for supports to make sure that they felt comfortable coming to school day one. So that was also something that we did. We also every school held some sort of back to school event to welcome families. Myself and Stephen probably visited 30 of those, and kind of just walked around, met with parents, talked to parents about the importance of attendance, the importance of wanting, meeting their students there on day one. Again, as I said, this is about creating a culture and changing the culture, but creating a culture where kids want to be in school every day. And what do our schools look like, and what types of, after school programs and extracurricular activities can we create for our students in order for them to want to be in school every day. So that was some of the outreach that we did. And when Sandra will give you some of the data from that outreach, and when she jumps into the presentation, and the outreach was very successful. that we did over the summer, and we have data that'll back that up. One of the other things that we did do, okay, so the community walks, with the QR code, we had over the summer, in the month of August, we had 60,000 hits on our school department website. Of those 60,000 hits, 9,300 of them were because of our QR code. Because of the outreach that we did in the community this summer, 16% of those 60,000 hits to our website was because of the QR code and the outreach that we did. So we know it was a success and that we really reached out into the community. And this is continuing. We did another one last week with Mount Pleasant, with the kids that were no shows, I hadn't gone up to show up to school yet. Myself and Stephen and a team from Mount Pleasant went out and knocked on doors to see, where students were and whether we could support them to come back. So this is continuing throughout the school year. This is not just, something we did in the summer, it's going to go on all year. We'd love to invite some of you to come on some of those community walks with us and knock on doors and talk to our families and see the work that we're doing. Also, some of the outreach data, in addition to that, last year, in total, all outreach, whether it be for academics, social emotional supports, maybe, some discipline, we had 27,000 outreaches to families. This summer alone, just because of the attendance alone, we had over 1,700 contacts and outreach with families, which is already 6% of what we did last year, and that was just in the month of August. That's how intentional and that's how much work we've done over the summer, making sure students are prepared to come to school and talking to families about the importance of attendance. As I said, we also, over the summer, the superintendent was gracious enough to give us the financial backing for this. We were able to hire restorative attendance mentors at our redesigned schools. We hired up to 5 teachers and 5 teacher assistants to help us with community outreach to families and students over the summer. We were also able to purchase the door knockers with the QR codes. And we were also able to buy some branding T-shirts. We're branding this campaign. So this one is Culture Rising. We also have an NBA T-shirt, Never Been Absent. Okay, so we're branding this campaign that we're going to be giving to schools and kids and to create incentives for students.
Hoodies.
We got hoodies, we got all kind of stuff. So this really is a campaign. And it's not a strategy. We understand the importance of attendance. Our chronic absenteeism rate last year was, I think, almost 59%. I understand it was, it was a pandemic and it was tough all over the country. But we wanted to make sure we intentionally re-engaged our students over the summer to bring them back into our schools and make sure that they have the supports they need so they're able to be successful.
So as Mr. Cachone said, we started right away on day one. So you'll see on the screen right now, we started a Be an Attendance Hero. That was our brand. And you'll see our little superhero there. This is just an example of the correspondence of how we shared and communicated with schools. We made it very simple. We broke it down for administrators. This is what we want you to do day one. This is what we want you to do day 2 and day 3, and made it very simple. But as you can see, day 1, immediately it started. If you didn't come to school, you were getting a phone call. So we started. Then each week we send administrators a very similar correspondence with what to do with those students who still have not shown, whether it's a phone call home, it's a visit to the house, it's sending a certified letter. We want to know why the kids aren't coming. And for some reasons, it could be they've moved to another district or whatnot. So we send these communications to the schools weekly, along with a list of students who are not coming, so that way they know who they are targeting. to support. And again, this is all around support and restorative to get students to come in. So again, a couple of communication tools. Another really important piece to this work is helping support schools with attendance teams. Every single school has to have an attendance team, has to have a high functioning attendance team. How are we doing that? Well, the team has created this, it was a Google form. We've asked schools to self-report on where they feel they are with setting up their attendance team. What happens then after this happens is after they complete this is Mark or Stephen go out to the schools and they meet with the administrators and meet with the teams to help support them through that. So if there are any challenges, they're thought partners in helping them overcome those. So that way they have a successful team. And then what we've also done this year is we've created a district attendance team, which meets, and we're looking at adding some additional attendance interventions, some letters, which we're getting ready again to send some, families some supportive letters of how can we support you, what are some barriers, how can we help take those barriers away, some digital postcards, connecting them to the Blackboard, which will now replace the Kinvo. Also some additional Tier 3 resources and supports. And then lastly, another brand new feature for us this year is we have an attendance academy, and you'll see our branding on that again. And basically we are recruiting, because it does take a village, we're recruiting school counselors, specialists, administrators, community partners, parents, students to help us in leading this work for the district, because it is a really important one. And we want to take away any challenge or barriers that families and students face for them to come to school. So, thank you.
Thank you. I first just want to congratulate the district on the job well done with this work. Chronic absenteeism has been one of my top priorities since joining the board. And one of the things that I feel like a number of board members have attempted to address over the years. Just, it's such a cumbersome task to get through. But it seems like we're beginning to turn a corner here with this approach. And so I just want to congratulate you on the job well done. I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned that, it's a campaign, and we've taken that campaign approach and been out in the community speaking with folks. I'm curious, over the summer, if the district targeted students and families who were chronically absent from the previous school year.
Yes.
And what data do we have thus far to determine if that targeted approach knocked on those doors?
Yeah, so we absolutely targeted students who were chronically absent the year before. We gave that data to schools, and that was the data that they utilized. So in order to see the benefits of that, typically, because if the student was chronically absent last year, because of some students and no-shows, clearing up attendance rosters, it typically takes about 30 days. After your first 30 days of school, we can then begin to pull some of the data on those chronically absent students from last year, and then we can make comparisons. So at a later board meeting, we can let you know, Kinzel, about what that looks like.
The other thing we also do is any kind of outreach that we ask the schools to do, we also have them complete what we call our community outreach form, which documents the outreach to the family, and usually there will list whatever that barrier is, whether it's transportation or, so that way we can start to really look at what are the reasons why students aren't coming to school. And then of course we have challenges at elementary because they're dependent on, adults to get them to school. So we're starting to create those pieces, and we ask schools as they're doing that outreach and when they're talking to families to complete that for us.
Yeah, I think you kind of went right into my next question, Mr. in terms of we're knocking on doors and we're engaging with folks. I was just curious what themes that we were able to gather from folks in terms of why students aren't coming to school, or what are the barriers, so we can begin to address them. I was just thinking, I think we were doing this last school year, we were collecting this data, and I'm curious, what that data from last year told us and what approaches we're taking this year to to address
I think similar things. COVID is still one of, a fear for some families. I think culture and climate in some of our buildings is another. And I don't know if there was anything else major. I think those are probably the two major ones.
Those are the two major
I would
ones,
say
yeah.
the two major. And again, I think last year it was very similar. COVID was another huge piece to that. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm curious as we move, further away from COVID, there are other barriers that come up and knock down folks' doors in terms of what are some of the root causes why students aren't attending school. My final question would be around, you mentioned attendance teams, and every school having an attendance team. Does each school have benchmarks for attendance that they want to hit? Or
Part of theirs.
I would imagine,
Their
do we as a
CSA.
district overall have a benchmark that we want to meet? And what, if we do, what is that benchmark, and how are we tracking that?
So
throughout the course of school?
every school has in their CSIP plan has an attendance goal, and that would be different for every school depending on where they're starting. So that goal or that target would be different for every school based on wherever they started. But yes, it is written in every one of their CSIP plans that they have an attendance goal.
And then we
So
have it
the
as part,
district goal is 90.
and we have it in our TAP plan too, as our TAP goal.
And so I would just ask, because this is the area where I really am interested in. And hopefully throughout the course of the school year, we can come back again and kind of get a sense of where we're at, meeting that goal, and, any adjustments that we need to make along the way, to make sure that we meet that TAP goal. I wonder if the disruption of RIPTA has,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now
absolutely.
we're trying to
Yeah,
bounce back from that. But,
yeah.
it's a job well done. This is.
Yeah, the bus situation definitely did not help in
Yeah.
supporting that. But hopefully we'll have that taken care of this week, and we should be hopefully back on track with that. So,
Any additional questions from, I'll pass it down to.
I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the incentives, the t-shirts, hoodies that I worked.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
T-shirts and hoodies.
I just
Oh,
wanted
the
to hear-
teachers.
Yeah, the t-shirts, like how does the
Yeah,
incentives?
so we want, not only are we giving incentives for kids that, if you're in school and you're there every day and you're prepared, part of that incentive will be, different types of campaigns where kids will be able to earn hoodies, sweatshirts, for good attendance, for being there, for being present, for being engaged. And so
But is it like a lottery system, or how does it?
could be, yes, it depends on each school, and it depends on the resources we can create for each schools. It may be, but in some cases, it's just, hey, if, in elementary school, the 3 first grade classrooms, the first grade classroom with the best attendance for the month of September, every kid's gonna get a hoodie or a t-shirt, and almost make it almost like a little bit of a competition as well, but there's different things at different levels that they'll do in order to get the
So we
shirt.
have two different kinds of incentives. We want to start creating some district-wide incentives, and then there are some school-based incentives. And at the elementary school, we've also been talking about how can we really thank the parents with the kids who've come in every day. How can we celebrate them also? So there'll be two kinds. There'll be a district, which we're working on that right now, actually, and then we're also supporting schools and helping create their own in-school, and that could be different. Some schools might do a pizza party, or, it depends on what each school would offer.
Yeah, because I saw that it was a $75,000 line item for the t-shirts and hoodies. I think, swag is cool for students to wear.
And they only want the good stuff.
Yeah. And I guess I'll leave this comment. If we are heading more toward creating fun incentives for students, and if there is more funding for that, or a repetitive like $75,000 aspect, I think either asking a group of students that are highly engaged to hey, design our next t-shirt, or having a raffle where it's like $20 gift cards here and there and different prizes that maybe to get corporate, corporate partners of the district in ride to be like, hey, we'll donate X, Y, and Z
And some
to this
schools do that.
school.
They do bikes.
So if you go to school for a week or you go to school for a month, you get into this lottery. I think there's a lot of creative ways where you can really engage students to where they're at. It could be even like Fortnite cards with, young boys. There's a lot of things we do to meet them right where they're at. Like, if I go to school a whole month or whatever, I get that.
That's what our district attendance teams, that's what we're tasking them to do, is helping us to come up with some of those incentives. And that's why we have a variety of people who sit on that team. to
Our
help support
attendance
us.
academy actually has students on it.
Yeah.
We're recruiting students to be on that just for that reason, so they can give us what are some creative ideas and what types
What
of
do they
things
want?
the kids actually want. I mean, we think
So
we know,
sometimes we think
Right,
what they are.
Yeah, so yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's what we're trying to do as well. Yeah.
And I think there's, again, huge opportunity when those guidelines are pointed out to reach out to corporate partners, small businesses, like, hey, we want to create incentives.
And some schools already do that, actually. Some schools
Okay.
have they have partners where they'll have bicycles and they'll do, so there are some schools that already do that. We don't do anything district-wide yet, but that is something we're exploring.
Sounds good. Thank you.
If you want to donate anything, let us know. We're not ashamed to ask.
So I said two very quick
Yeah.
things, not even really questions, I don't think. One is actually just to reiterate what President Thomas said, which is that when the board met for a retreat 6 months ago, yeah, I think that's when we met. We spent several hours talking to one another, trying to come up with a very short list of doable priorities, and chronic absenteeism was one of those very. This is something that is very important to this board. As you guys go through this year and begin to look at the data of the impact of what you're doing, you really can't share that enough with us, because it is something we can move the needle on. You guys are moving the needle on it. It's wonderful to hear. So
Well, there's so much great stuff going on in the district, and it's all great. And the TNL team who's here is doing incredible work.
Yeah.
But if kids aren't here to learn, then it's right. It begins with that. So it's important.
And so my second question, and I think I may have spoken to one or both of you about this before, like 5 or 6 years ago or something. I chaired a task force within the district that was looking at chronic absenteeism and attendance policy. More specifically, we found very strong correlations between chronic absenteeism and geographical distance from school, especially for elementary school students. So as you guys are sort of processing the data and asking the school attendance teams to process the data, throw in geography or place or distance from school if you haven't already as a variable, because I'd be very curious to see whether there's still a correlation, because it led that task force at the time, before all sorts of things changed, to contemplate the idea of shifting towards more of a neighborhood school attendance policy, precisely to try and reduce chronic absenteeism. And I would be very curious to see if that data still sort of surfaces when we ask that question, because then that gives us another way of attacking this, right? Which is to think about neighborhood schools at the elementary school level, for which there's a lot of other virtues as well, including parental engagement.
I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because we'll be coming to the policy committee, because we'll be asking to revamp our attendance policy. We need to support this work. We need to relook at our policy. So our team is actually in the middle of rewriting and drafting a revision to that. So we'll be coming to the policy committee on that, because we need to make some changes in order to support this work. So, yeah, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from school board members? I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Stewart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that concludes the back-to-school presentation for this evening, and that brings us to adjourn. Motion's been made by Mr. Escobar. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Mahingable. All those in favor?
Uh,
We are adjourned. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you, everybody, for staying so late.
Thank you.
I make sure President Thomas Biden will call for tomorrow.
Tommy, that's the least I can do.
We do. Tuesday, Thursdays are rough. Usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday is good. Next Wednesday, so. Monday or Friday.